Unit 4, Perception Naturalized Objectives. Having learned about the naturalized epistemology, especially the methodology continuity between science and epistemology, we shall try to apply the method so as to see how it works in practice. This unit has the following objective: application of method, demonstrate the interdisciplinary character of the method, suggest an up-to-date theory of perception. 4.1 Introduction. We saw the Quine's ideas of naturalized epistemology as science self-applied is particularly significant in the background of the internal conflicts in epistemology. Although epistemology seeks to sit in judgment over disputed questions of truth, in reality it ends up in engendering even more disputes and contentious claims. One such topic is perceptions. Philosophers, especially from the 7th century, have spent an extraordinary amount of time discussing perception. The reason of such preoccupations with perception is not far to seek. This was the time when theology lost its crown as the queen of science to the more empirical science. These new disciplines in the final analysis were dependent solely on sense experience, forgetting information about the world around us. Such intense focus on perception gave rise to various theories ranging from George Berkeley essays est percipi perceived to G. Morris defense of common sense. Given the variety of competing theories, perception is an excellent candidate to which naturalized epistemology can legitimately say physician health they self. It is also a fit candidate in as much as it comes at the intersection of various disciplines like philosophy, physiology, and phenomenology, to mention just a few. We shall apply therefore the principles and procedures of naturalized epistemology to perceptions to see what theory of perception is adequate to the phenomena relevant to the problem of perception. 4.2 What is perception? Perception tends to get defined in two different ways, either in terms of the senses or in terms of immediately. It is commonly associated with the kind of knowledge we get about our surrounding world through our senses: sitting, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. Although there is a tendency to think of perception solely as vision, knowledge by means of any one of the five senses is understood to be perception. It is for this reason that perception is defined in terms of the senses as senses experience of sensory knowledge. Will this definition is true for the most part, it is not perfect. What about our awareness of ourselves? What about our awareness of our own inner states, like knowing that I'm angry? None of the five senses are involved in this process. Still, they are considered perception. 5 senses is understood to be perception. It is for this reason perception as immediate knowledge than the senses knowledge has the added advantage that a group of phenomena Define immediate knowledge than an sense knowledge has the added advantage that a group of phenomena that is known as extrasensory perception ESP, or what the Indian traditions call yogic perception, also gets included as perceptions in. They are also immediate knowledge. Please note that yogic perception is not necessarily be limited to yogis. Yogis have merely developed and initiate human capacity to a greater degree. Although perception is best understood as immediate knowledge, practically all discussions of perceptions in Western philosophy are done in the context of empirical knowledge. Empirical knowledge, considered in this manner, perception tends to get defined as knowledge by means of senses or introspections. We shall limit our discussions of perception to such. 'Yogis have merely developed and initiate human capacity to a greater degree. Although perception is best understood is immediate knowledge, practically all discussions or perceptions in Western philosophy are done in the context of empirical knowledge. Considered in this manner, perception tends to get defined as knowledge by means of senses or introspections. We shall limit our discussion of perception to such knowledge which is immediate and ordinary, and leave our discussion of ESP. We shall further limit our discussion to visual perception for the most part, although much of what is said in these connections will also be applicable to others. 4.3, an overview of the 4.3, an overview of the different theories of perception. Since naturalized epistemology is suggested as a remedy for the internal conflicts in epistemology, where instead of resolving cognitive disputes, it tends to give birth to more disputes by producing more contentious theory, it is appropriate that we begin with a review of the different theories we have already studied in an earlier unit. Let us begin Begin with realism. Realism is not primarily an epistemological theory but an on the ontological theory, a theory of what exists. It holds that the world exists independently of our knowledge of it. The world of objects, apples and oranges, stones and trees and events, earthquakes and tsunamis, so sunrise and sunset exist irrespective of whether anyone perceives them or not. Of course, there are some objects and events that would not exist if there were no human consequences to bring them about. Example: tables and chairs, wars and weddings. But underlying such artifacts and events, there is a world that is independent of each and every human being. This is realism as opposed to idealism, which holds that the world exists only in relation to consequences. Our concern is with realism as a theory of perception or mode of knowing. The first component of realism as a theory of perception is ontological realism, or the view that there exists a mind independent reality to be known as a theory of knowing. Realism must explain how we come to have knowledge of that mind independent reality. How does the ontological reality become an epistemological reality? It becomes epistemological reality when a knower becomes aware of it, or when the ontological reality somehow enters consciousness. This then is the second component in any knowledge, awareness, or entry of an independent reality into consciousness of the knower. Awareness obviously is not something material. Aristotle therefore described perception as a matter of the mind taking the form of the object without its matter. When I am aware of a cat on the mat, it is not the material cat that enters into my mind, but only its immaterial form. If what enters into a consciousness is true knowledge of what is out there, then what has entered into consciousness must indeed represent what is out there. It must indeed be the cat there on mat right now, not my memory of a dead cat that used to sit there, or my imaginations of a kitten that may sit there in the future. In other words, my awareness or representations of the mind independent reality must correspond to the reality correspondence theory of truth. Therefore, is a third component of realist theories of perception. Such correspondence between what is in consciousness and what is in the world can come about only if my awareness is somehow be casually related to the perceived reality. Such casual connection between knowledge and reality is a fourth element of the realist theory of perception. So far there seem to be no serious problems and continuous theories of perception enter the picture along with foundationalism of the modern period. It brings with a commonplace observation that our perception is not always reliable, that our senses do deceive us sometimes. This is a common observation known to all, but it did not have the kind of implications it come to have with the modern thinkers. From these observations, they go on to doubt all perceptual knowledge and ask whether any of our perceptions is reliable. The many theories of perception that cropped up during the modern period are therefore attempts at securing perceptual knowledge against that imaginary danger. One of the solution of the foundationalist purpose is called in indirect realism. It says that our knowledge of the world is indeed secure. It is just that our understanding of the nature of perception is mistaken. We think that we perceive something, we get directly connected to the world outside, and therefore when we find a wrong case of perceptual knowledge, we bring a doubt all perception. Therefore, instead to thinking that perception connects us directly to the world. We must think, think of it as connecting to the world only. Indirectly direct realist on the other hand, they need that our perception is indirect. We know the objects in the worldly directly. Both are realist theories as both accept all the four doctrines of our mind: independent reality, awareness of the that reality, or causal connection between mind and reality, and the correspondent theory of truth. The main difference is that the indirect realist, they neither there is any direct causal thing between the end product of perception, awareness of the cat and the mind. Independent reality, cat reality does have a causal impact on us, what it and the mind independent what it procedures is not the awareness of the object cat. What it produces is some kind of fun, some kind of an intermediary object. These intermediaries are given various names: idea, lock and Berkeley impressions, humes, sensations, or sense data, and Quayle are 20th century empiricists. From these intermediaries, we refer to the nature of the object. Therefore, if there is a misperception, it is our mistake. There is no problem with perception. Perception can be trusted to give us true knowledge of the world. Direct realist find that in their attempt to defend perceptual knowing. The indirect realist go too far in saying that it is not the object but the intermediaries that are perceived. We perceive a cat and not the sensation or idea of a cat. Reaction against the anti-realist dangers of indirect realism come in the form of the causal theory of perception, which is an emphatic affirmation of the causal component of realism. We have noted with the advent of computer technology, realism takes on to a computational model of perception like other realists that who treat perception as cognitive episode that begin with certain sensory input and ends with a cognitive output. They differ from other realists in their attempt at theorizing about the process that happiness in between the input and the output. In this matter, they are somewhat similar to the indirect realist, except that they analyze the intermediary process as a computing process done in the mind to give an output in the form of the perceptual cognition. Constructivism is another theory of perception. It differs from all the realist theories in the attention paid to the active dimension of perception. The basic idea is that the perceives conceptual and linguistic scheme determines shapes and or constructs his or her perceptual experiences. Are the active contributions of the perceiver often takes the form of unconsequences and interpretation in terms the conceptual and linguistic scheme available to the perceiver. The first thing as seeing as a cat, as a dog, etc., is often used as shorthand for this kind of interpretations. Because of this basic difference between constructivism and realism, constructivism is often called anti-realism, in spite of the fact that a constructive visit like Hilary Putnam has explicitly repudiated that he is not anti-realist and has called his positions internal realism. Note: Note: foundationalism and coherentism are theories of justification epistemology, whereas realism and constructivism are primarily theories of reality ontology and non-secondarily theories of knowledge. But foundationally, justification goes together with realist ontology, whereas coherentism goes with constructivist ontology. 4.4 Clarifying the problems of perception. William Alston has observed that historically philosophers have been concerned both with the epistemology of perceptual belief and the nature of perception. Under the latter heading we can distinguish two main interrelated problems of what is it to perceive an object event situation state of affairs, and b what is the nature of structure of perceptual experience. Consequently, this is correct. There are two different problems the philosophers of perception have been concerned with: the justification of perceptual beliefs and advancing theories about the nature of perception. The two are clearly different. One comes from the realization that and of our individual perception could be mistaken. From these realizations, it asks the legitimate questions as to how justifications of individual perception may be done justification of perceptual beliefs. Therefore, this justification of individual beliefs inquiry into the nature of perception, on the other hand, is about that whole mode of knowing called perception, as distinct from inference, testimony, memory, and so on. If it's justifying individual perceptual beliefs is like a football referee attempting to confirm that a scored goal was indeed a valid one, that not violate any of the rules of the game. Examining the nature of perception is like examining the rules themselves to see whether the rules are appropriate or they need to change. No individual effort to, of course, is allowed to do that. There could arise rare occasions in the course of a game where the rules are not clear, and where the referee has to make and ad HOC discussions. But if there no rules in no rules in place, there would be no point in referring itself to use the Justinian terminology we saw in one of the earlier units. Block 3, unit 2, justifying an individual perceptual beliefs is an activity done within a language game, whereas examining the nature of perception is to scrutinize the language game itself. This important difference is neglected by the traditional foundationalist approach, when the foundationalists move from the finding that individual perceptual beliefs could be mistaken and therefore needing justification, no, to thinking that all perceptual beliefs may be mistaken. They are like the bird that finds strong winds an obstacle to flying, to thinking that it could fly without any air at all. The imagery is from Kant. The difference between an individual perception and perceptual consequences is not merely matter or greater generality. An individual perception is not cognitive episode, is something that happens to us as episodes that begin with the surface irritations of our senses and end with the claim out to have perceived something. In computer tech terminology, a perceptual episode begins with the input and into the processor and ends with an output. Perceptual consequences, on the other hand, are not merely about episodes happening in consequences. Perception are also activities we do not passivities inflicted on us as activities. Perception does not begin with an input, but much before, nor does it end with a propositional output. A hungry animal Example looks for food before it receives any sensory input, and its process of does not end with the awareness there are food available, but goes on to act on the awareness. This point of reception as an activity is typical of receptual consequences than perceptual episode. The two problems, the problem justifying perceptual beliefs and the problem of the nature of perception are thus clearly different. Once the difference are recognized, there is nothing so very mysterious or profound about the justifications of individual perceptual beliefs has to require too much attention from philosophers. All of us have the experience correcting perceptual errors, but that is always done by standing within the larger perceptual board. They can be corrected as long as the reliability of perception as whole is not doubted. When any individual perception needs to be corrected, we do so by looking more carefully, or getting someone else to take a look. This is the significance of accepting contextual continuity as integral to naturalized epistemology. One might think this to be an anticlimax to countries of discussion on perception, but it is not. Philosophers on either side of the battle really do not have any alternative to this procedure as far as the problem of justifying perceptual beliefs is concerned. Their conflict concerns the second problem, that is the nature of perception, and it is in this area that naturalized epistemology must prove it worth. But modern epistemology, both foundationalist and currentist, miss the point that there are two different problems involved, from the finding that some of our individual perceptions have been mistaken in the past. The foundationalists go on to distrust the whole of perception and and derivatives, which amounts to all knowledge, and seek to secure all of them at once by looking for some infallible foundations. They give birth to the realist theories of perception, including the causal theory. In doing so, they neglect the important difference between the true problem, and in the process seek to play the incompatible roles of referring the game according to rules on the one hand, and not and recognizing any prior rules that make the game possible on the other currentist finding the impossibility of a God's eye view, the view that does not stand on any prior beliefs, go to the other extreme and come up with constructivism, which seems to be purely a matter of coherence. If the foundationalists proceed as if there were no rules that constitute a game, the currentist proceed as if rules alone make a game, and the skill of the players is of no consequence. Completing the two different problems therefore lead the rivals of engage in theorizing without paying attention to the total context of the game. Naturalized epistemology challenges both to distinguish to the two problems and properly identify the problem they deal with are challenged to see that although they talk in terms of justification such much as their concern is about perceptions, the points of complete concern the nature of perception and not the justifications of individual perceptual beliefs. Once this clarity is achieved, it is possible to focus on the real problems of perceptions, which which is not that the of justifying perceptual beliefs but of finding the nature of perception. This in turn enables us to look at the phenomena relevant to the problem, focusing on the nature of perception. Then let us proceed to consider the phenomena relevant to it. Four point five phenomena relevant to residual consequences. First, following Alston's lead, following Alston Libet can see that the nature of perception includes the nature perception and b the nature of perceptual consequences. The former is mostly a conceptual matter of analyzing how the word perception is used by the normal language users. For these purpose, it is enough to focus on individual perceptions as identifiable episodes in consequences. These episodes begin with a sensory input and end with a cognitive output. The realist analysis the conceptual structures matter. It is also empirical and phenomenological. It begins before there is any input and does not end with the output. This is what the constructivists focus on. Thus when the problem of perceptions is clarified as the nature of perception, we got two different sets of phenomena that need to be taken into account. As far as the concept of perception is concerned, we have already seen them dealing with the definitions of perception as well as in our discussion here of realism, but we shall see them now in terms of the phenomena relevant to a theory of perceptions, mind independent reality. Think of the distinction between seeing a cat and imagining a cat. The main distinction is that in the one case there is a cat that exists independently of my consequences, and in the other case there would be no cat. If I stop imagining ontological realism, therefore is a constitutive phenomenon of the very idea of perceptions. Determinacy of stability, the independently existing reality of experience bias to as reality or world in the abstract, but always be received as individual object or events that have a determined character. Our perceptual experience is always an experience of the determined reality of apples and oranges having this shape and that color and so on. We experience the world as having a prefabricated character, so to say. We do not cut up the world into apples and oranges. We find them given as such. We do not make stones and cotton soft. It is given to us, so on. Awareness this too we have seen is constitutive of the concept of perception. For immediacy of awareness, will discussing the definitions of perceptions. Be noted this makes the difference between my being a witness to an event and hearing about the event from somebody else. If this phenomenon were to have seen, we would not call it perceptions. We would call it perceptions. There are some complications as to what considered immediate, if any. Watching of a game on TV, immediate mediate, but it is a problem as to the definitions of immediacy and not questioning immediacy itself. Casual connection, this another conceptual requirement that for an episode in consequences to be considered an instance of perceptions, that episode must have casual links with the mind independent reality, in the sense that if reality were to be difference, that episode would not take place. An episode where casual connection is missing would be an instance of my imaginations, hallucinations, etc., but not an instance of perception. Casual connection is necessary but not sufficient conditions for perceptual experience. Fallibility, it is an undeniable fact about our perceptual experiences that some of the episodes we took to be veridical might subsequently turn out to be false. The main difference between the direct and the indirect realist is a matter of how to explain these phenomena. 4.6 Phenomena relevant to perceptual consequences. Second, the realist theories of perception, although called theories of perception, remain focused on individual perceptions than on finding the nature of perceptual consequences as such. Therefore, they tend to neglect the wide range of phenomena that are relevant to perceptual consequences, especially the range of phenomena that are related to perception as an activity done by the perceiver, which begins before any sensory input, and does not end with the cognitive output. Such phenomena related to the activity of perception include the following: perceptual search. Not only do we see things that are presented to us, but also look for the things that interest us. I can go to a library and search for a particular book, go into a crowd and look for a particular face. 2. Selective attention. Our attention is selective. It's a common place that the information available during each moment in time is vast and complex. We are constantly bombarded by a myriad of sights, sounds, and smells, yet most of these go unnoticed. It is only a fractions of these that comes to be noticed by the perceived. Therefore, the causal sequence set off by the proximate stimulates determines what can be received in any given conditions, but not necessarily what will be perceived. Consequently, even when all objective factors, including the physical positions of the perceiver, are kept constant, the resulting perceptions could vary. Therefore, different people could see different things in the same given environment. Perceptual polymorphy. Like selective attention, this also points to the fact that even when there are no variations in the objective factors, the perceptual scientifics could vary. However, there are two different phenomena. Selective attentions. The attentions refers to the fact that the perceiver has a choice in receiving the stimulus input from the environment. Polymorphy points to a different fact that even the same input can lead to different perceptual outputs. The most common examples that illustrate these phenomenon are ambiguous pictures like the duck rabbit or the old omen young omen, but the phenomenon is not restricted to ambiguous cases. Consider the following example given by a lava number. No, I say neon if the person who hears me knows German and the context is right, what I said will be heard as no if the hearer knows only English and the context is different, the same word will heard as nice. For the hidden side, when we see an object, we receive sensations only of the side that is exposed to us, but we are also aware that it has other sides, and that these will be available to us if we move around. They are available to other pre-receives who are seeing it from other sides. 5. Veridicality and corrigibility. The foundationalists focus on the fallibility of reception and seek security against this possibility, but of fallibility is only part of the story. The amazing fact about perception is not its fallibility, but the fact that most of our perception is true veridically. When a mistaken episode of perceiving is recognized as an instance of misperceptions only after having corrected it, or in the process of correcting it, such that the perception as a reliable mode of cognition is never in doubt. 4.7. Choosing a theory of perception. Having seen the different theories of perception, now is the time for epistemology to do this proper job and the adjudicate between them, and by giving a credit where it is due to correcting what needs to be corrected. uh, we have already seen the main points on which the different theories differ. For many difference between realism and constructivism. One focuses on perceptual episodes and emphasizes the respectivity of the mind. For such episodes to occur, the author focuses on perceptual consequences and the active contributions of the perceiver before, during, and after the episode. Compared to this major difference, the difference between different versions of realism are more like shadow boxing, indirect realism, and the computational model agree in giving some kind of an active role to consequences during the consequences during the cognitive episode, but remain silent on any activity before or after the episode. They remain focused on particular episodes or perception, because even while proposing a theory of theory of perception, they make no distinction between a perceptual episode and perceptual consequences. Once the problem of perception is properly identified as the nature of perceptual consequences, it becomes clear that we can't really choose between realism and constructivism, between respectively pregnancy and activity, because both are characteristic features of perceptual consequences. Therefore, both have to be combined in some fashion. Cognitive physiology takes both into account when it talks about two kinds of process and processing that goes into perception. One is called top down on or theory driven processing, where our prior theories and concepts influence what is perceived. The other is called bottom up or data driven processing, which is controlled by what is given to the senses from outside of philosophy of perception. Then needs to combine both processes. This could be done either by adopting realism and making appropriate adaptations to it, or by adopting constructivism and adapting it. Alvin Goldman, in his epistemology and cognitions 1986, takes the former path and makes modifications to the correspondence theory of truth, which shall explore how a constructivist approach could be adapted to include basic realist insights. We adopt a constructivist theory with its active role to the perceiver, because that makes it easy to explain such phenomena as perceptual search, selective attentions for polymorphy, and so on. The real problem for constructivism is to find an explanations for such hardcore phenomena as determinacy and immediacy. Take immediacy. If perception is immediate, something that happens to us, that it can't be a matter of our construction or interpretation. Moreover, in most cases of perception, we are not aware of any we are we are aware of any constructing activity on our part. When the problem is spelled out in this manner, the solution suggests itself. Our lack of सही बोला तू खड़ी लिख जा itself. Our lack of explicit awareness of activity is not an argument against perception being an active constructions. There are other instances. There are other instances of activity within our bodies, such as digestion, of which we are not explicitly aware. Perceiving process could also be a similar unconscious activity. It may still be asked, if there is a mediating process of this kind, how can it be considered immediate knowledge? The answer is that immediacy is being used here in a adaptation to it by adopting constructive and adopting con- constructivism and adopting it. Alvin Goldman in his Epistemology and Cognition 1986 takes the former path and makes modifications to the correspondence theory of truth. We shall explore how constructivist approach could be adapted to include basic realist insights. We adopt a constructivist therefore with its active role to the perceiver because that makes it easy to explain such phenomena as and perceptual search, selective attention, polymorphy, and so on. The real problem of our constructivism is to find an explanations for such hardcore phenomena as determination, immediacy, take immediacy. If reception is immediate something that happens to us, that it can't be a matter of our constructions of interpretation precision. Moreover, in most cases of reception we are not aware of any constructing activity on our part. When the problem is spelled out in this manner, the solution suggests itself. Our lack of explicit awareness of activity is not an argument against perception being an active construction. There are other instances of activity within our body, such as digestion of which we are not explicitly aware. Perceiving process could also be a similar unconscious activity. It may still be asked, if there are mediating process of this kind, how can it be considered immediate knowledge? The answer in that immediacy is being used here in a comparative sense compared to others means of knowing, like inference of testimony. Perception is immediate. 4.8 Cognition and evaluation. A more difficult problem is that determinacy. Constructivist seems to say that it is we who caught up an indeterminate external reality into determinate entities like apples and oranges. This can't really be the case. A rock is hard not because perceives find it so perceives find it hard because rock is indeed hard. Humans at the most could have found the words for certain futures exhibited by reality itself. These are futures of reality to which we have given names. Constructivism can be adapted to accommodate this phenomenon by making some modification. Constructive visits can be more explicit in acknowledging that our constructions are based on the future exhibited by reality. What they need to claim is not that reality is devoid of futures that are independent of the perceiver, but that it has too many futures from which the perceiver picks and chooses some out of the neglect of others. In other words, perceiver selectively attending to some futures and not to others. Moreover, more and not to others. Sala. Moreover, what gets Receiver picks and chooses some of the neglect of the others in other. Research selectively attend to some features and not to others. Moreover, what gets selected and gets left out in most cases of routine perception is not done at the consequence level. This fast with the consciousness processing mentioned in connections with immediacy. The blind nature of such processing is found in Cherry with Cherry Fooder's book, The Modularity of the Mind. Such unconscious processing is explained by a voluntary theory which speaks about the cognitive needs unique of different organisms. The basic idea is that each kind of organism speak of the information it need for its survival in a given environment. In the process of the evolution, the cognitive mechanism of an organism has developed in a manner such that certain features of a given surrounding are picked up by it whole, while the other features are left out. That is exactly the same as that which is picked up by humans. The cognitive nick of the human animal is called miscosm. It is our voluntary heritage that we unconsequently pay attention to some future of the surrounding and not to others. Not all our perception is not of this kind, but this accounts for that inner core of our perceptual knowledge that is more or less common to us as a species. It is the same core that comes into play in the radical translation here. Then we have an excellent explanation that combines the active contributions of the perceiver about denying the realist institution that what is perceived is determinate mind independent reality. An additional advantage of this theory of perception is that the perennial conflict between a priori knowledge favored by the rationalist and a posterior knowledge favored by the emphasis get resolved. A priori knowledge is inner core that is our voluntary heritage, but even what is ontologically in terms of the individual a priori in this manner is philosophically in terms of the species of a posteriori. Another important conclusion follows from this manner of combining realism and constructivism. When we take all relevant phenomena into account, human knowledge turns out to be not a mirror of reality at all. Rather, knowledge is like a map, just as there could be various true maps of the same territory, political, geographical, industrial, etc. So too with human knowledge.